shutting down Augment your pre-order. We've spent a lot of time reading through all your comments, working to try and understand how we can make things right for you. After much thought and reflection, we decided to close down the program.
As much as I think it's pointless to try and justify a subpar frame rate by claiming it's cinematic, or to judge an interactive experience by a book's standards for narrative, there is one thing we have in common with every other medium. If you want to be a developer, learning this art form's history will do wonders in helping you understand how to make better games. Now, I'm not going to sit here for half an hour and give you a detailed account or anything. That's this guy's job. Instead, I'm going to briefly walk you through the evolution of the Zelda series as the years went by, because I think it serves as a fantastic example of a series that embodies both where we came from and where we are now. The original Legend of Zelda was crafted alongside Super Mario Bros. The effect of this was that each one got the ideas that didn't work in the other. Mario was all about moving quickly. It was about twitch reflexes and moment-to-moment action. Zelda, on the other hand, was a more methodical experience. The whole appeal of that game was that the world slowly revealed itself to you as you trudged on. There were plenty of paths leading in every possible direction, and no guideposts telling you to follow any particular one. There is a route you're supposed to take to reach your end goal, sure, but half the fun was figuring that out. All of these roads eventually led somewhere, and you might just find something for your trouble at the end. Better yet, some of these things interacted with other parts of the world you might have found at other dead ends in surprising ways, leading to even more discovery. The adventure was the core of this entire experience. It filled that desire to discover something you'd never seen before, to make you feel smart and accomplished when you figured out how all of the pieces fit together. But because of the hardware it was on, it was hampered in some ways. Hyrule felt unsettlingly empty on the NES. It was just you, one old man, and a whole lot of nasties. If you don't know what you're doing, it might be hours before you discover another person, and even then, they won't have much to say. This pretty much cemented Nintendo's reputation for putting narrative on the back burner to gameplay. It's not a bad philosophy, mind you, at least it understands the freaking point of video games, but compared that to Dragon Warrior, Final Fantasy, or hell, even tabletop RPGs. There's a reason most dungeon masters will force you to come up with a backstory when writing your character sheet. It gives your being in this fictional universe context and purpose. A character that's adventuring just for the sake of adventuring is boring. After all, what's the point of role-playing if you're not even gonna play a role? Character and story are intrinsically linked to settings of adventure, because that's the payoff. Your reward for beating a boss is a new town full of colorful characters and more plot to unfurl. A hookshot is nice, but it's not going to have a philosophical conversation with its pet rat. A candle is nice, but a black mage can achieve that same effect while still giving you a fascinating look into the mysteries of the world. And last I checked, a raft isn't very good at giving poof poof. But hey, they only had 8 bits to work with. At the time, it would have been pretty hard to do what Mother did with story while also having The Legend of Zelda's gameplay. Zelda 2 tried to fix this somewhat, but aside from Error, I doubt you remember the names of any of that game's characters. Link to the Past had the same problem. Just rapid-fire names for me from Whatthefnu. If you can list off more than 5 characters from that game by title off the top of your head, I'd be quite impressed. And no, Link, Zelda, and Ganon don't count. Compare that to Ocarina of Time. Navi, Saria, Mido, the Great Deku Tree, Impa, Darunia, Princess Rudo, Malon, Talon, Ingo. Do you see how easy this is for me? All I have to do is think of a part of the world, and immediately I can name every character within it. That's because in Ocarina, technology finally caught up to ambition. Characters could be tailored to their environment instead of just you. They had room to breathe, to live, to have stories of their own, and interactions of their own with everything around them. Link was just one individual in a land of equally as fascinating people as him. And if the games that came after this were any indication, the public reaction to Ocarina was something Nintendo definitely took to heart. Entire towns now had stories to tell and conflicts to resolve. Dungeons started becoming characters of their own, being centered around themes that defined them both mechanically and visually from others. For crying out loud, Link's companions started becoming more central to the plot than he was. And in case you're wondering, yes, this ship has sailed. There's no denying that Ocarina was a huge turning point for the series, not just because the characters were so good, but because suddenly they became the entire point. Gone was the open world exploration that the original reveled in. Your adventure was less about discovery now and more about being led from set piece to set piece, daring not to stray from the path lest the story fall off its carefully crafted hinges. And that took away the other half of the Dungeons & Dragons analogy I made earlier. Player choice. There are still elements of discovery in these games, no doubt, with secrets to find and alternate routes to uncover, but the paths are much more defined. It's so much harder for you to tell your own story in these games as opposed to the original, which you could argue lessens their need to be games in the first place. Which is why I think the upcoming Wii U Zelda caught so many people's attention. It's finally going back to those roots. How can it do this? Because the Wii U is the first Nintendo console that can handle it. Once again, technology has finally caught up to ambition, meaning we can have our cake and eat it too. We can finally have this massive explorable world that's also filled with interesting locales and characters that give meaning to the whole affair. And at last, Zelda can do what it's always wanted to do. If there's anything Zelda has taught us, it's that we live in something of a golden age for game design. We have reached a technological threshold where there's simply no point trying to cram more polygons into our games anymore. It used to be that you had to make a game play, look, and sound well despite the limitations the hardware had. You could have a big world, but nothing in it. You could have a great cast, but they'd be running the show. That, however, is in the past. If you want to stand out in a time where literally anyone can get and learn how to use these tools for free now, you either need to be radically different or just really good at it, or a combination of the two. There is no limit to what you can achieve these days in game design with enough time and devotion, so the trick is realizing that potential to its fullest. You have to constantly push yourself. You have to play more, test more, and learn more than anyone else. Then, and only then, will you craft the kinds of games that can stand up with the big boys. Just remember, friends, you are now going up against a Zelda game that's finally reached the series' true potential. You have to top that. Good luck.
You know, after a hard day of a victory dance, nothing quite beats a nice tall bottle of this stuff. You hear what I'm saying? Oh, tastes like regret.